Free Japan Channel number 86. Today, July 22nd, Tuesday. The time is 8 p.m. Good evening, everybody. Here in Yokohama, it is night time. Summer night. The window is open. The summer breeze is going through. How are you doing? Tonight's FGC topic is Immigrants should not be admitted in Japan. This is the theme of tonight's FGC. Compared to other advanced countries or G7 countries, Japan has been relatively accepting relatively small number of immigrants. For example, in Germany, the percentage of immigrants or immigrant-related populations are more than 10% in the total population. In France, the figure is approximately the same. The same is true of Italy or other Northern European countries. On the other hand, here in Japan, the percentage of immigrants or immigrant-related population is about 2% or 3%. Now, Japanese population is approximately 123 million. Therefore, the 2% of this population will amount maybe 3 million or so. So 3 million people as immigrants here in Japan. This is already surprising. The United States has been historically the country of immigrants or slaves. Therefore, the mixture of race is salient in the United States. In the European continent, immigrants are present everywhere in the society, in education, in civil servants, or in politicians. However, here in Japan, as I said, the percentage of immigrants is relatively small. Therefore, the presence of foreigners is not so threatening now. The majority party of Japan, that is, Liberal Democratic Party and Kome Party, are willing to accept more immigrants from Asian countries, perhaps from China. Constitutional Democratic Party is the biggest minority party, and this party is said to be socialist party. I also think that Constitutional Democratic Party is left-wing party. Therefore, this party also insists that Japan should accept more immigrants or immigrant laborers. To make matters worse, so-called business people, top people, there are several associations or groups of top leaders of business, and they are unanimously advocating that Japan should admit more immigrants. Geographically speaking, immigrants to Japan will be mostly Chinese. And Chinese government is notorious for its anti-Japan attitude. The anti-Japan propaganda is spread every day, everywhere in Chinese mainland. In addition, in education, in Chinese education, Japan or Japanese people are always portrayed as evil, wicked, and very degraded. China has several nuclear missiles, and many of them are aimed at Japan or Japanese major cities. This is the attitude of China against Japan. Then, why should we admit immigrants from China? China is such a hostile country to Japan. Therefore, these Chinese immigrants who will be rooted here in Japan will not forget their ancestry tie to Chinese mainland. Therefore, if Chinese government issues some order to these so-called immigrants in Japan, then they would act according to Chinese interest, not according to Japanese interest. Of course they not. If China is more friendly country to Japan, the immigrant problem from China would be different. However, in reality, China is such a hostile country to Japan, and we Japanese people should be very alert about it. However, this consciousness about the threat of China is totally lacking, not only in the government level, but also in the people's level. Japanese people are generally not aware of the danger or threat of China or Chinese people. They even think that Chinese people are welcomed because they spend their money here in Japan in sightseeing. This is a very naive idea. However, this is perhaps a general idea among Japanese people. So they don't notice the fact that Chinese capitalists already bought large amount of Japanese estate, for example, not only in the cities but also in the countryside. The land of Japanese countryside is neglected. Nobody care about it. Therefore, the land price is very low in the countryside in Japan. For example, in Hokkaido. Then Chinese investors go there and buy this kind of soil, this kind of land at a very good price. Then the estate owner in Hokkaido will gladly sell their property to these Chinese investors. And this land accumulates and accumulates, piles up and up. If these Chinese investors got together and plan something. Then, in Japan, in Japanese soil, there comes totally different things, totally unfamiliar things to Japanese people here in Japan by Chinese agents. This is not the subject of mere possibility. Instead, this can be a reality because China and Chinese people do everything, do anything in order to achieve their goal. It is not only in Japan, but also everywhere in the world. Chinese bad action are criticized. In Japan, especially politicians and media are already manipulated by Chinese agents. Therefore, they can say nothing about this menace. Therefore, Japanese people are not aware of it either. Immigrants should not be admitted in Japan. It is true that Japanese business world is now running out of human labor force. Then we should make use of Japanese technology or Japanese ingenuity, not depending on the labor power of immigrants or Chinese. We should concentrate our ingenuity, our inventiveness on the business or economy. We can make it. We can do it without resorting to foreign labor force. We can make a difference. We can succeed. We can overcome the lack of human resources. Once we accept foreigners here in Japan, they never live here because Japan is a very comfortable, free country and protected. Human rights are protected here in Japan. I think that Japan is the most comfortable country for ordinary people to live. There is not such a conspicuous, outstanding gap between the rich and poor. Even the poor people can have reasonable welfare from the government or local municipality. Hospital, medical care is sufficient here in Japan. Nobody leaves the patient behind. Nobody leaves the sick people alone here in Japan. This is a very good point, and we should be proud of it. However, immigrants are a free rider, free eater, so-called. Therefore, they don't pay anything, but they want to get some welfare here in Japan. At the worst case, for example, some Chinese come to Japan and immediately go to the city hall of some city and apply for the welfare, apply for the welfare for their life. Chinese people should be regarded as a very dangerous people because they have so many brutal human rights violations in their domestic issues. We can see it, we can hear it from Tibet, from Uyghur, from Mongolia, in Hong Kong, human rights movements are almost suppressed. Taiwanese are always aware of this threat. Therefore, they can be they are always so alert against mainland China. We Japanese people also follow this trend of Taiwanese. However, politicians as well as media people are so manipulated by Chinese agents, and they don't say anything about the reality of China. And general people are always unaware of this danger. Here in FCC, I have to continue this broadcasting from now on. Thank you.